Does the Auburn football fan base have a flaw? We talk about it on today's Locked On Auburn.
Well, Zach, I actually just finished crushing some chicken farm, and I am freaking ready to rock and roll.
You are Locked On Auburn, your daily podcast on the Auburn Tiger, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, welcome on into Locked On Auburn, your daily Auburn Tigers podcast. I'm your host, Zac Blackerby. Thank you so much for making Locked On Auburn your first listen every single day. It's a Charlie Tuesdays. We are joined by Auburn message board legend Charlie 5, and I've had this topic ready to go for about 2 weeks now.
You waited for me.
I'm like, this needs to be a Charlie 5 episode where we have this conversation. Because it's a tough conversation, and this is going to rub some people the wrong way, but we need to get this out here.
Let's do it.
We've seen many different versions of this. People are already calling you upset. There are many different versions of this story, but it's been going on for, it seems like, a decade? Is that fair?
Maybe longer.
Maybe longer. Yeah. But Auburn fans have this tendency to really get excited about backup quarterbacks who have no experience playing in an actual game. That are dual threat quarterbacks.
Yes.
It's gone on for as long as time. And Robby Ashford is the latest installment of this. Now, those who hear me, because a lot of people just got real upset with this. I am not saying Robby Ashford is a bad quarterback. I'm not saying it's not valid, but let's just say we've been through similar situations like this before.
They're going to gravitate typically to the Robby Ashford type quarterback. If there's one on the roster, they're going to always gravitate. I say the majority, they're going to want to gravitate towards them for sure.
Yeah, right. I mean, and we even saw this when Auburn had a starting dual threat quarterback, probably the best quote unquote dual threat quarterback. I mean, obviously outside of Cam, with Nick Marshall. And they're like, no, Jeremy Johnson's a better version. Let's go after that. But even like before that, like there was interest in Khalil Frazier. There was interest in, I think Cody Burns even had some pull there.
Cody Burns was sort of the kickoff, I feel like. Cody Burns was the first.
Yeah.
Cody Burns was the first when he came in as a freshman over Brandon Cox. And I want to say like the birth of like Pat White and the success he had at West Virginia, we started to sort of really see those mobile athletic quarterbacks really explode. And then we got Cody Burns, and immediately, I mean, he wasn't on campus hardly at all. We wanted him in there. And then Cam came along, and then now everybody has to be the next Cam. Like we want the next Cam. So
Joey Gatewood, who was like in 10th grade, and they're like, next Cam Newton. Cam Newton.
He was
Jeremy Johnson. Next Cam Newton. It's like, no, that's not how it works, guys.
Yeah.
You don't get a generational talent, then get him 6 years later. It just doesn't happen.
I can't tell sometimes I can't figure out sometimes if it's just always, if it's it's the backup quarterback's the best player on the team, or if it just so happens that over the last decade or so, we've had a lot of athletic backups. I can't figure out which one it is. You know what I mean? I can't figure out which one's the chicken and which one's the egg. Is it?
Well, we didn't really get a whole lot of it when Jeremy Johnson was starting, and then there weren't a whole lot of people calling for Sean White that I can believe. Am I off on that? But I just don't really remember that happening.
Maybe. I mean, I think towards the middle of that season, there was probably some people that wanted Sean White, but it was not like it was because the performance was so poor. Like it was so bad. I don't know that necessarily anybody, there was a lot of hype for Sean White when he got on campus as, taking over for Jeremy Johnson. Or, I don't remember that. I just remember Jeremy Johnson coming out and throwing like 6 interceptions or something in like the first 2 or 3 games, and they're like, and almost losing to Jacksonville State, and everybody's like, oh my God, play Sean White. So
yeah, I kind of remember that, but that was almost out of like desperation though. Not
not.
And I'm very pro Sean White. I was pro Sean White when I was covering that team.
Yeah.
But
John
then
Franklin.
like John Franklin III is probably the most dramatic version of this because there was excitement when he committed to Auburn. And then that Last Chance U show came out.
Everybody's like,
I remember I was like producing The Drive back then, and Bill Cameron spent all day at work like watching that. And he's like, dude, he wasn't even the starter. He wasn't even the starter there. And it's like, then all these Auburn fans are watching and they're like, it's fine. He's fast. It'll work out in Gus's system.
Yeah.
And it's just like, it never happened. It just never culminated in anything.
He got one start against Vanderbilt, and they had to bring in broken shoulder Sean White to win the game, basically. And still almost lost.
I forgot about that.
That was crazy. Remember right at the end? Who was that linebacker? He was from He was like from Shades Valley or somewhere in Birmingham. Or
Zach Cunningham, is that right?
Cunningham, yeah.
He was a monster.
Philip Lawley begged to offer that kid, begged for us to offer him, and whoever was the coach, I guess it was Gus at the time, said no. He goes to Vanderbilt and becomes like an All-American. He jumps the center, blocks the field goal, and then they almost run it back. That was intense. But anyway, I digress.
Is that when Cam Petway just like
broke away, had like nobody around him, and then his hamstring like blew up.
And then it was just like never the same again. Crazy
never the
stuff.
same.
What a crazy game. Yeah.
No, but I'm with you. It does seem like we have, and I want to, especially after Cam and then after Nick Marshall, I think we got such a bad taste in our mouth because Gus ran all over everybody, put up billions of yards for 2 years with Nick Marshall, and then we sort of quit. And then we'd bring in a guy, but we would always start a guy that we didn't see that was
have we talked about this? Have you and I talked about my take on this? The whole like Gus quarterback thing?
I don't think
I think Cam and Nick were the exception. I don't think those guys were Gus quarterbacks. Because even when you look at when he was at Tulsa,
he had a big, tall, lumbering, unathletic,
he just all over the place. I mean, I think Jeremy Johnson was the kind of quarterback that he wanted, just big, massive arm, and did enough to be able to move a little bit. But Cam Newton, obviously, I think most offensive coaches would have been fine using him. But the Nick Marshall thing, I think that just kind of all came together because Auburn had a really good offensive line. Trey Mason was a really special running back.
Yeah.
And, he got on campus like 2 weeks before the season started. And I think they were just kind of desperate. And so they drew that, did all that and pulled it all together. And, lightning struck. But after that, like he went after guys like Sean White, and he went after guys,
Tyler Queen.
Yeah, Tyler Queen, then obviously like Jarrett Stidham. And so I don't think – and that really ticks people off, because I did this back when I was doing, my midday radio show, and I would get callers be like, you don't know what you're talking about. I'm like, just look at the guys that he went after. Look at the guys he went after. And then every time he would almost get fired, he would go out and get a dual threat dude, and they would never win the job.
Yeah. No, I'm with you. That it always kind of blew my mind, though, because – did have so much success, and it kind of gave Auburn a different edge. Like there are so many guys out there that are 6'2", 200 pounds, 190 pounds, that can throw the ball 70 yards and can run real fast. Like I feel like you could have brought 3 or 4 of those in a year, and 2 of them that didn't work, put them at DB or wide receiver, and just gone out and ran around and chunk bombs and run the read option. But yeah, after that happened, it was always like, if we could just get that back. So anytime anybody that fits that role, no matter what the system is, now we're in pro style system,
totally different.
Under center, and we just think, if we could just get that one guy, that fast guy in the backfield, and that's going to be that's the missing link. And here's another thing. Here's another thing I hear a lot.
Okay.
We good? We got to go to break? We good?
Let's hear what Charlie 5 hears a lot of next right here on Locked On Auburn. But want to tell you about our friends at BetOnline. BetOnline.net is the #1 source for all of your betting, stats, and sports info. And BetOnline right now, they are red hot with all the NBA playoffs. Not going to lie, not a huge NBA guy, but a lot of you guys in the Locked On Auburn Discord are all about the NBA, and this is definitely the time of year to watch it. There's no question about it. So you can find out about all the sports developments and league reviews and things happening with, NBA kind of really just ramping up with playoffs, then MLB. I mean, there's a ton of things always going on at BetOnline for you to wager at. So check it all out. BetOnline, where the game starts. Charlie 5, what do you hear a lot of that kind of makes you feel a certain way?
Okay, so this is what I hear a lot. Okay. Our offensive line is weak, so therefore we need a mobile quarterback to make plays when things break down. Here's the problem with that.
Yep.
I would argue that a mobile quarterback makes it tougher on a offensive line that has troubles, and the reason is because when the quarterback is a pocket guy, the linemen know where he is. So therefore they know the zones or the areas that they have to block, they have to protect. Now they may not be able to do it, but they know where he is. So it makes their job a little bit less stressful. When the guy is all over the place and he's breaking out, you don't know which way to block people where. You just kind of, it puts a lot more pressure on you. Now, does it give you the opportunity to have bigger chunk plays if you do find that crease? Absolutely. But how often have we seen that, like over the last couple of years, especially when
it happens, you're able to recall it. I mean, you think of 2019 Iron Bowl, you think of Bo Nix against LSU last year. I mean, these big moments where it's got a ton of upside, but it also makes me think of, when Jarrett Stidham would leave the pocket too early, or when Bo Nix would leave the pocket too early. These linemen are being coached to form a pocket for the quarterback, and they don't know when the guy bails too early, it's behind them. So I think you're right.
So that's that. I mean, while that sounds good, yes, he can make a play. If he's running for his life, he does stand a better chance. But at the same time, just because he can run, that does not mean that is the solvent or that is the answer for a porous offensive line. A lot of times it could be worse.
So I'm sure I've already heard it, even though this isn't live. I hear people typing in Malik Willis in the comments right now. I just hear it.
Yeah.
Exception to the rule.
Probably the exception, because you can name off a bunch more. Even though I think he's come out and said that he was very. I mean, and to me, this is a very mature. This is proof that how mature he is now. Saying that while he was at Auburn, he was very immature and he didn't take things serious. He was trying to, make big plays and didn't, work in the playbook like he should, didn't understand the offense like he should, which had to be the easiest offense ever. And when he did get opportunities, he would make pretty bad mistakes. Like you think about when he went in against Alabama State and it was a read option and the read was clearly to give, and he wanted to make the play. He kept it and got a safety, and Gus chewed him like crazy on the sidelines. But but look what happened. Now he's going to be a first-round pick. So, but again, you nailed it. Exception versus rule. We can name 100 others that is more along the lines of the rule.
But Charlie 5, there are people, and there's been people in the YouTube comments that legitimately believe if Robby Ashford does not start this year, and once again, I got to stress, I like Robby Ashford. I like his upside. This is not a bash Robby Ashford. This is more of a, when you make these claims, think about it before you type it and, will it into existence. But there's so many people out there saying, okay, if Robby Ashford leaves, we're going to let another Malik Willis go. Like there are people that firmly believe that. Yeah. And to me, that is crazy. Like that is such a crazy thing to think about.
Well, I mean, I agree with you, but at the same, Robby Ashford's not going anywhere. Okay. He can't, he's used a transfer. He's not going anywhere. Yeah. And I still think that is trying to find a one-off example and making it the issue for all. And, for the most part, everybody that's left hasn't really done anything. Malik's the exception. So,
right.
I'm just not, think about it, the whole picture. Don't just find things that fit your narrative and roll with that. Like look at the whole picture and go from there.
To me, the greatest argument, if you're pro Robby Ashford, which there's nothing wrong with being pro Robby Ashford.
Right.
I think your greatest argument for him starting is A-Day. to me.
He threw the ball really good. Like, let's
Mhm.
talk about him being a passer. Like that was very, very impressive. That's something that nobody's
Harsin's not going to start a guy who's the most mobile just because he's the most mobile. Like,
no.
that's just not who he is.
No. I think the part of him being a quarterback that everybody was most concerned about had nothing to do with him running. Like, we all knew that dude could scoot. Him being able to stand back and throw lasers over the middle, hit dudes in stride, that was something that we did not think could happen. And he was very efficient with the football in A-Day. So if you want to talk about, if you think he's the better, like if that's the reason, then I'm all on it. But like, just because if it's close or whatever, and then we just want to say the tiebreaker is because he can run, I'm just that just doesn't really do it for me.
Right.
I want the best quarterback back there.
Does D Davis make this list?
Of guys that people wanted that.
Yeah.
Oh, of course he does.
Where did he end up going? Was
He
it
couldn't.
UTS? Where was it?
He could barely get on campus before people wanted him to be the starter because of that highlight film.
Where did he go?
He hasn't gone anywhere yet, I don't believe. Has
he? I thought he went to UTSA as well. No, I guess he hasn't gone anywhere yet.
Somebody did just go to UTSA. I'm trying to think who it was.
Yeah, but like as I Google his name, like there's a headline here that's like, did Bryan Harsin did Bryan Harsin let slip why Demetrius Davis? Weird. But yes, I mean there were a lot of folks that that said the same thing. Like he's gonna be another Malik Willis. And it's like, no, he's probably not. He probably would have been somewhere. Like there would have been a bigger deal about it if football coaches thought the same thing.
And look, I love D, and I wish him the best. Okay, 100%. I hope he goes somewhere and he lights it up. But there's a lot of people that were even the most avid D Davis fans that went to that open practice in Hoover and watched him throw the ball, and we're like, oh, okay, we get it now. It makes a lot more sense. The arm was not there yet on this level. Like not even remotely close. He threw a good.
Again, I think his argument was intangibles. And I think the kid's a winner. I just think he needs time. Most folks need time, and there's nothing wrong with that. And some folks want to wait, and some folks don't, and that's okay. And it's gonna change careers left and right for better or for worse in this new transfer portal era that we're in. I mean, that's just the way it is. So. All right, Charlie 5, we're going to talk a little Auburn basketball roster management. Speaking of the transfer portal, you're listening to Locked On Auburn. All right, Charlie 5. This Broom kid. Seems like Auburn's the favorite for him. Seems like there's a lot of energy. He was on campus this past week. His first name is spelled like Johnny. What is it actually?
Janai
Broom.
Yes.
Massive man from Morehead State. What is the latest as far as what you're hearing, seeing, reading, all that stuff?
Yeah, so about midway through the season, probably closer to the end of the season, I was just like, how are we ever going to replace this shot blocking ability from Kessler? And I just literally Googled stat leaders of the shot blockers in the country, and Janai Broom was number I think 3 at the time. And I went back and looked at see what he played, what he scored against us. I think he had close to a double-double against us at Auburn. Yeah. He was like Ohio Valley Conference Player of the Year. Everybody knows all the good stuff about him. He's a stud. I really feel like he's going to be an Auburn Tiger. He's supposed to visit Florida this weekend. I'm not even 100% sure that he'll visit. And I really don't think it's anything more than a courtesy visit because Castleton's coming back. And, he's been there for 12 years, and that's going to be he wants to be the guy. And he's going to come to Auburn, and he's going to be the guy, the starting center. And that's exciting. Like that almost I don't want to say would completely replace Walker because Walker had an outstanding year, but like it may give you the closest thing you can possibly have to replicating that type of player is this kid. He'll be. I think he could be huge for our front court, because you just don't want to roll into the season with only Dylan and then a little bit. Traore's really more of a power forward than he is a center. So now you can slide him over and rotate him with Jalen, and you're real big again. Like, you went from a medium lineup to you can go real big again, and that's very exciting. Another guy, they just call him BHH. He transferred he's a transfer from Tennessee.
Which, let's be very clear here. If you go by just initials,
Brandon Huntley Hatfield
gives you an extra 4 points per game.
Yep, Brandon Huntley Hatfield, another 6'10" guy. He's supposed to be here Thursday. He's coming for a visit on Thursday. He was a 5-star. I think he reclassified. So this past year he was really young. Didn't have a whole lot of didn't put up huge numbers, but Bruce went after him hard when he was in high school. I don't really see I really don't see how all those dudes could end up on the same. All these guys could end up on the same team, but Bruce is going after him. So when Bruce is after somebody, it's hard to imagine that he doesn't get him. You add those two guys, and you're talking. You got Dylan.
Leave if they get both of those guys?
What's that?
Does anyone leave if they land?
You would have to think, but you would have to think so. I just don't know who that would be. I don't really know. It seems like you'd have
somewhere that Broom would then probably play some at the 4, which would impact Jalen.
Yeah, I mean, whoever you bring in is going to be. There's going to be a log jam at 4. There really is. Either that or one of or both of like a Cardwell or a Stretch would leave, and then you just have like a Traore or a Brandon Huntley Hatfield, rotating with Broom at center, and then the Jalen, because I don't think Jalen's going anywhere. Jalen and the other rotating at 4. But the one thing that still leaves out to me is a shooter, and I haven't quite pinpointed. It seems there's so many names out there that we've been looking at, that we've let walk. I mean, Bruce has said we've let some really good players go because of some defensive. Maybe their defense wasn't very desirable, even though they may shoot 38% from 3. He's very particular about defense. So I trust
the fact that Auburn is now in a situation where they can be picky against top, like, talented folks that want to be at Auburn. I mean, I think it says enough about the situation that we're in. We're going to be okay.
Absolutely. But I think, like I said, we got probably like 3 spots left. I think Broom's going to get one of them. And I feel very confident he's going to get one of them. And then what does Bruce do after that? Do we get? I know we got to get a shooter. I just cannot see him going into next year without a like bona fide stud 3-point shooter.
Yeah, it seems like we're more focused on going big, which we need.
Yeah, big guys that can run.
We need that to like make a push to win the conference, but to win the Natty, we need like.
You got to have some shooters.
A 3. We need a 3 guard, I think.
You really, really, really need a 3 or a dynamic 2 that can shoot. That they could probably play both. Could play 2 or 3, and then can shoot 35+%. And I think we have guys on the team that can do that. But man,
go get somebody who's already done it.
Yeah, and as cold as they went towards down the stretch, like. That can never happen again. You got to have somebody on the floor that can stroke it.
I'm there with you, man.
At any point in time.
Yeah, and it's just so crazy to think, when Auburn was playing 9-10 guys, and we were talking about when we were doing the post-game show. We were just like, it's crazy. Like, there's never going to be a night where all of these guys are off. And like, other than Jabari, like that was pretty much true. And then against Miami, Jabari probably had his worst game. So it's like, yeah, I guess that technically it did happen. So the more guys that you can get that can find some heat at any point, like, you need to get those guys.
I like that. Find the heat. Yeah.
Find some heat, baby. Find some heat, Charlie 5. You know where it's at.
Absolutely.
Where can people find you, hear you, love you, support you?
You can find me on Twitter at @the_Charlie_5 in the Locked On Auburn Discord.
This is popping right now.
It is, man. Every single one of those Every single one of those different channels, we got something going on in them. It's a lot of fun. AuburnLive.com, the corner message board, or Monday, Wednesday, Friday on the Dad Bod Golf Pod.
Let's go. Things are popping off of the Dad Bod Golf Pod these days too, so be sure to check all of that out. It's worth your time. We'll be back tomorrow right here on Locked On Auburn. See ya.